Hi and welcome. My name is Hedda and I am from Bioextrax. And together with Per here today, we are going to try to debunk what microplastics are and also where they come from and what the latest research show. So Per, maybe you could start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so thank you, Hedda. So I'm Per Hökfelt. I worked as a global sustainability manager for 15 years. I worked within sort of plastics industry for 8 years. I've been on the Bioextrax board, so I know the company quite well. That's maybe a short version of my background.
And so what what are microplastics?
Very good question. I think a lot of people are asking themselves exactly that question. I think microplastics, as the name sort of says, it's small particles of plastics. And in order to become a microplastic, the particles or needs to be less than 5 millimeters in size. So as soon as a plastic particle becomes less than 5 millimeter, it's defined as microplastics. And if it becomes very, very small, less than 1 micrometer, it's categorized as nanoplastics. But still a microplastics, but a very, very small one.
And where do they come from?
So you could say that there are two main reasons why they exist. One is that you might be a sort of a plastic producer that develop these small particles. They are called primary microplastics. They are designed to be small, and are they are used specifically for that reason. And I think in let's say personal care products, so different types of cosmetics, that is where you find these sort of intentionally added microplastics. They are there to create a certain characteristics of the product. That's the primary microplastics. And then there is a secondary microplastics, which is, you can say that you start off with large pieces of plastics, and then by mechanical abrasion or UV light, which is basically sunlight, these plastic pieces basically become smaller. You think about if you have two pieces of plastics and you grind them together, and you're basically shaving off small pieces of plastics, sort of secondary microplastics. And I think if you look at the world today, what are the big volumes of microplastics in the world today? I mean, one big volume comes from textiles and clothes, so synthetic clothes. So when you are basically, if you put your synthetic clothes in your washing machine, there's a lot of mechanical abrasion, and small particles are basically rinsed off and goes into the ocean, which is a big problem. And then another big volume of microplastic come from tires from cars and trucks and buses. The abrasion of the tire towards the road.
Okay, so now we know that microplastics are small pieces of plastics, and they usually either are added from a manufacturer, or they are scratched off from bigger pieces of plastics. But what does the latest research say on microplastics, and what are the effects on the human body?
Yeah. So I've looked into this, a couple of studies from 24 and 25. The first one is about the heart and the effect of having microplastics inside our arteries and the blood vessels. So here, this study is looking at something called plaques, which is sort of some type of buildup that you get inside your arteries, and that can lead to a heart attack. And what this study shows is that they have found microplastics inside those plaques. And they also could see that if you had microplastics inside those plaques, the risk of heart attack was 4.5 times higher than without the microplastics. One thing is that they found it inside the plaques. I think also important to mention is that it means that I mean, we talked about that these microplastics are basically everywhere in our daily life, but this proves that they can enter our bloodstreams.
And how do they do that? Do they like?
I
How
think
do we get
you know
microplastics in our bodies?
the simple I mean, because we are exposed to microplastics, it comes in through our food, through breathing, and they are simply so small that they can enter our bloodstream. The size is sort of the problem here. If it would have been big pieces of plastics, they couldn't. But because they are so small, they can enter the bloodstreams.
Okay.
So another study that is it's actually looking at the brain. So I think one other question that has been up for discussion is can microplastics actually enter the brain? Because there are sort of inside our bodies, there is a barrier. It's called the brain and blood barrier that is protecting the brain from exposure of different things. But this study proves that they have found a high concentration of microplastics inside the frontal cortex of the brain. And they also found that when examining brains from people with dementia, that they could find high concentrations of microplastics inside the brain. So I think here you can also see that these particles are so small that they can go from the blood also into the brain. I think we all understand the importance of the brain. Exposing the brain with these plastic particles is, of course, high risk of many different things. And the third area, which is more related to fertility and newborns and placentas, so looking at females having given birth, they in 100% of those placentas that they examined, they found microplastics. If we think about how much we are exposed to these microplastics, we get them into our bloodstreams, we get them into our brains, but we also get them very early in our lives. Even before we're born, we are exposed to microplastics. Yeah, that's another third research study that also was looking at this. And I think yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think one of the reasons that we see more of the research is, of course, that I mean, what you see here is that there is a high risk that this exposure has complications with human bodies.
And is there anything that we can do about it?
Yeah, I think maybe we should do another explainer video on how we can do to minimize the. I think eliminating microplastics today is impossible. We can do things to minimize it, and I think we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But now, at least, when you know where it comes from, you know a little bit more about it, you can start thinking about different choices you make in your life.
Yeah. No, definitely. Thank you very much, Per, for giving us an explanation about on the topic of microplastics.
Yep. Thank you very much, Hedda.